apprehension because it was my first job. Never heard of Chance Brothers. And the headmistress calling two of us in and saying, "You're going to Chance Brothers for an interview." And so we looked at each other and thought, "Where's Chance Brothers?" So, apprehension, but right from the start, feeling part of, as Alan said, part of the family.
The atmosphere was just a constant upwards learning curve, which is what it was intended to be as an apprentice. And it was just like moving into a family.
As soon as you set foot there in the place, I think it's got something to do with black country folk, but the friendliness.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't hold back on what they thought about you. And it was genuine. They didn't tell you that, yes, that was all right if they didn't think it was. Yes, if you wanted to see somebody who was working in Blown and Pressed, well, you had to work your way between the glassmakers. Various flat glass furnaces. Into the lighthouse works.
Yes.
7-story.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom, yes. Not on the lift, though. I didn't trust that lifting. General offices. Maintenance in construction. Decorating. Laboratories. Library.
But one of her jobs was to go around residents in the local streets to warn them that diaphone testing would be happening at such and such a time, and if those residents wanted earplugs, then Chance Brothers would supply them. And I mean to talk to her, she was 80, in a high 80s. And she was talking there like a schoolgirl. You could sense it over the telephone, and I was just as so it just hadn't left me. I can remember what I did at Chance Brothers as better than what I had for my breakfast.
But it didn't dawn on us then. Well, it didn't dawn on me that we couldn't have been further from the sea.
Oh no.
And yet these huge things, foghorns and diaphones blasting off.
Well, you'll be working along there with this great pile of drawings one at a time, checking them, making sure the numbers and everything were all correct and legible. And Bill would walk along behind you, and it used to be smashing because he was a typical, he used to smoke a pipe and he was easygoing, and he'd walk along and look at, "What have you got there, lad?" And he'd look at it. Now I remember that. And his signature may have been on it, 1890, signed, drawn, WFA Ritchie. And he would explain it to you, and a little bit about the lighthouse it was going into.
So it joins everything together as well.
Oh, well, that's all part of this pride in the work. And I mean, there aren't many places where you'd get that. I think that, more than anything else, is responsible for my obsession with lighthouses and Chance Brothers history today. Some of the things I saw were overwhelming to a lad. I say it's where I got a sense of wonderment. The drawing office, the original drawing office I worked in, was a second story, and it had a door from the side. And when you walked out there, of course, you were 20, 30 feet up in the air. And so you had a panoramic view. And the first time I saw that, I think, cool, after a college workshop, and you saw that, and then to add to that, suddenly this lighting the place up and flashing across your eyes, and of course that was testing of the optics, and when you, as I did, walked among them whilst they were being constructed, and they would be towering above your head, some 20 feet above your head, and rotating with a light inside them. It was like fairyland. It was a big concern, the lighthouse, and it was intensely interesting for an office lad. It was even now I can remember it with reverence almost. And I've finished up 18 years lecturing in further education, engineering subjects, and the number of times I was able to quote experiences that I had at Chance Brothers to illustrate a process or a point. I realised how much I'd learned there. I don't know how slowly, but it dawned on you that what you were part of was an organisation that was actually saving lives at sea. It was part of the national interest because we were a maritime nation then, and you knew it was a very important job.
I think I took it for granted because there were other firms in the district, Eccles and Pollock,
Yes,
where you'd still got the family. It's only afterwards that you think, I wish I'd have taken more notice of something. Strange. Even now, I can still remember walking down the Newgate, New Drive, stopping to talk to people. Now that sounds as if it was time wasting. It wasn't, because whilst you were talking to them or talking with them, they gave you ideas of what was wrong, or what they wanted, or what they weren't happy with.
To all companies in those days, I don't suppose Chances was any different to any other big black country company. But of course, that kind of loyalty nowadays is almost laughed at. Yes. It's got no respect whatsoever.
There isn't the opportunity in most. There are very few firms that have been around for the length of time that what an old firm is about now. I think there are very few people now who can genuinely say that they enjoy their work. And to go to work was no effort. You enjoyed it. You even enjoyed it enough, in my case, to use 4 buses to get there and back and go back at night, because there was a youth club.
I came to Chances when I came to the Midlands when I was 20 years of age, 6 days before I was 21. I met my husband up the northeast. He was stationed up there. I couldn't get a job, so I came down here to work. And I borrowed the money from Mrs. Lambeth, £2.12 and 6 for the train to bring me down here. So I've been down here since 1940. And then I worked at Chances before I had any family for about 5 years. Then I had 2 boys and a girl. But when they got older, I kept going back to Chances and things like this. So originally, I should say, I finished with Chances when it went into redundancy, and my husband did as well. Edna and I were still babysit. She'd have my children while I went, and I'd have her children while she went. I started off with Chances in the roll plate, and it was a horse and cart then, not lorries and that. And then I worked up the decorating, the 7-story, and I worked the the other part of Chances.
Now they see the tubes.
The tube.
Yeah.
You know, you
That's how good. Yeah.
I used to have to cut it from the glass blowers and carry it away and things like that. His dad worked there. My mother-in-law's father worked there.
Yeah, yeah.
My husband's uncles worked there.
Yeah.
My son worked
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And then there was the cafe, wasn't it, with Ivy
Yeah,
from the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah.
And at 12 o'clock, it was lovely because you used to sound the siren for them all to come out for the lunch on the bikes, not the cars, on the bikes then. And then back on at 1 o'clock. And if you were late, you should be stopped quarter of an hour's money. And it was a nice life. I liked the life more so than today. But
Oh, yeah.
you get lost.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, you
See the men doing the glass blowing, yeah. And, you know, them going in the kilns and then doing what they used to, where they're doing the decorating,
the light shirts and all that.
the fancy plates, that you know, the fancy edges, and then putting the transfers on and them being burnt in, you know.
And it was great. And when you used to come out about dinner time on the bikes, and you know, kids used to be waiting at the gates for the dads coming out, and on the Albury Road there was a glass crusher, and my husband used to work on this, and I could never get my children up to bed at night until, because I lived by the glass crusher. The glass was on the main road there, and I lived up now in there, one back 180, and until my children seen their dad on that glass crusher, they wouldn't go to bed.
Isn't that? And we did have some Jamaicans as well.
Yeah.
I remember one one Jamaican who worked with us, and every Christmas, you know, the very pure white rum. He used to come and he used to fill your glass up, and honestly, it was ever so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he worked with us for years. He did, and
then we used to take the children, the babies, rather than leave them on their own like they do today. We could take the children to the social club with us, and have a knees up Mother Brown down there, didn't we? That was on the Albury Road.
Let's have a Christmas party for the children every year. So, you know, this foghorn used to go on, and the kids used to be asleep, and I used to, because it used to wake them up.
Yeah.
I used to say, here it goes again.
Yeah.
When they were touching it, you know. And I used to go mad. I had.
Was the redundancy for starters?
Yeah,
that was
what
a big,
yeah.
We never thought Chances it goes down.
That was a big blow. That.
We never thought Chances. I mean, it was so busy, and you know, you got all the people coming in, and all the stuff used to go out on the horse and traps, and you know, it was a big blow. And it's a chance. We never thought Chances it closed down, but I was very happy, and in fact, I would think them days were better then than we are now. Because I think today is very, very stressful. What's going on? We hadn't got a lot of money, but I found comradeship and things like that were, you know, you could, what would you say? You could trust people. And if you couldn't help one, you helped another. And we have to take our share of tea and milk, and because it was on ration.
I mean, we used to make all sorts of things there. Ship lights, airplane lights, tank lights, even the lights what went into cars, you know, like behind the hood. We used to make those, all those. And car headlights, everything. Anything made of glass, we used to make.
I reckon they got every trade there, hadn't they?
Oh, they got a lot of trade, yeah. There was a lot of things.
In the globe department, there was a small department there, and there was a chap by the name of Arthur Hill who was in charge of this. But he used to make the chemical laboratory stuff. And he'd get a flask. They'd make a flask. And he'd put a flask inside a flask, another flask inside that, with all tubes, you know, for the whatever they were for. But they were most intricate types of glassware, you know. I've never seen anything like it.
Yes, take it up a line about 100 yards long, chop it into lengths, and then they'd finish it up upstairs, like up in the tube.
It was run under like a trough. You know, like a trough, and then the glass used to drop into there. Let's run up. I could see him now running up there with a great big blob of glass on the blowpipe, and running up, and the tube left him as they didn't.
But of course, I mean, you have to perspire a lot, really. It's hot work. I mean, his shirts were white sometimes with salt.
Oh, they used to be white, yeah.
And stiff. It's that. I mean, it's just to come out of it. It's really boiling out of it all the time.
The strength of this man. He was big built, and fit out, but he was pondering when he used to walk. He was a good man. He would do a good job as well. But me being apprentice and that, I got on well with Bill, and I used to run the canteen of a dinner time, and the money, and get his dinner and his knife and fork, and put it down on the table for him to come and sit down at his dinner. Say, otherwise he'd be in the back of the queue every day. So I used to go and get his dinner. Because I used to sit opposite me to my dinner, and I used to play him up. I used to play a bet, and he'd reach over like that, and he'd catch hold of my wrist. And he was that strong, I couldn't move. That's how strong he was. We'd lift the engine out and everything. That strong, Billy Bick. And his daughter was the same. Of course, there's the old canteen where everybody used to go and used to get a cup of tea for a penny, And Charlie, the old bloke, they used to be behind the counter, rather really old-fashioned type of thing. They would condemn it today, but we were standing in this little space. It wouldn't be half as big as this room.
Well, happy family. The chances are really happy-go-lucky, really, That's, I enjoyed working there.
I think everybody enjoyed it there, and you had a lot of old friends and families living there, working there. A lot of families from grandfather, father, son, and daughters. They all lived there, worked there, and they all enjoyed it. There was a chap there called Wilf Lawrence, electrician, and he used to come in there as well. But when we finished our breakfast, we used to have a sing-song, have a choir, and we'd all sing, And there was Wilf Lawrence conducting. We'd have a sing there in this substation, and really good it was, But I mean, it was quarter an hour, 20 minutes, and we were back at work again. But we used to have a choir.
So I went in, and I was going in at 5:30 in the morning, and I used to leave till well after 10 o'clock at night. 7 days a week, there was nobody there, and but it was like a big barrel in the furnace, which revolving with the glass and dolomite and different powders, which gradually made it into balls. And that took about 3.5 hours, 4 hours before you could pay. So I got a bed down, and I got a bed, and I used to go to sleep. There's have a alarm clock, and I used to go to sleep and wake up after about 2.5 hours to sample it, And the director used to come in and leave me a note by the pillow to tell you. Well, I mean, he knew what I was doing. He knew I was in, because to get the quantity out in a day, I got to start very early till late at night. And that's how it went on for months.
The ruby glass they made, they used to make a mixture, and it was terrible looking stuff. When blood is congealed and it's mixed with matter and all that. And they used to make this glass and pour it into a big pan and let it go cold and break it up. But it looked like that, blood and, pus and everything together. That's it. And of course, then they used to, when it was cold, they used to break it up and mix it with other glass and melt it. And when it came out, it was ruby glass. Brilliant. Oh, it was lovely glass. But it's like all types of glass and coloured glass as well. I think you got to be right. And also, I don't remember the old petrol pumps, that you hadn't driven. And they used to have a great big globe on the top. They used to make those as well, blow them by mouth as well,
I was, they stuck me in the key post on my own, because everybody else used to disappear down the shelters, and out come the cards straight away. But English, who was the manager then, he says, "Would you go in the key post?" I said, "Yeah, of course I will." He said, "If anything happens, report it or do something about it."
And the one bomb came down on the canal side of the railway, and it fractured the gas main in the gatehouse. I went in there. You could smell gas, and I thought, I got out of there because he went up. And across the road was what we call the boiler shop, and a lot of the roof was missing. But they'd left all the lights on when they went down the shelter. So I rushed in there and I didn't know where the switches were. So I got nuts and bolts thrown at the lights to put them out. Well, the shift I was on, I went in to go to work, and they were all standing outside on Spon Lane. And I said, what's the matter? Oh, we've all been called up. And they all went to Singapore, and they all got captured and taken to Japan, and they were working down the coal mines. And when the few what came back, they'd all got TB.
Well, it was my first place of work. It was the place what taught me a trade and taught me practically everything I know in my working life, including the later years when I was with Birmingham City Council. Eventually, the guy who was foreman over the shop, Joe Hinton, nice guy, big guy, never swore, wore a a grey overall with a blue collar and a brown sports coat and a cap, collar and tie. Never swore, very polite, but you did what you were told. If it was 10 minutes break for your breakfast, you had 10 minutes, and he used to come out and look at you, and then you get up and go and work. And the blacksmiths did all the metalwork for the company. Nothing was ever made outside of Chance Brothers. All the machines were made internally. The framework for them, the boiler shop where I worked, the blacksmith shop, was made, and then the millwrights fitted it, and the machine shop and the electrician. We made all the machines, including the glass rolling machines and things like that. I went under a furnace once and I wore glasses like I do now, and they had a nylon support under the lens. Used to have half rings, and then that was under that. And I came out and I thought, God, my eyes are blurred. Took off no lenses in my glasses. The nylon had melted and the lenses had dropped out my glasses.
How big were these furnaces?
Well, they hold 60 ton of glass, and they were supposed to last 3 years, and they did.
When you first went, didn't they used to have a beer allowance, hadn't they?
Yeah. The glassmakers themselves used to have so much beer allowed them per shift, and they'd fetch it in an enamel bucket from the canteen, and then dip the mugs in and drink this beer. And Chance Brothers, to my knowledge, never sacked anyone. The old glass blowers, because glass blowing went, became mates in the engineering shops, in the blacksmith shops and things like that. And there was a guy called Jack Stokes, a glassmaker, and he used to say, "Show us your cheeks, Jack." And he could extend his, and they'd like balloons, these face cheeks, because years of glass blowing stretched the skin and muscles, whatever they use.
Yeah.
My best memories are in the blacksmith shop. There's no doubt about that. The others in the offices, safety and so forth, was more stressful. But the pleasure of making something and seeing something you'd made, and you'd done your best to make it as best as good as possible, that was, and you had a joy in accomplishing something then. And part of the training was striking. And he used to strike for a blacksmith. One particular guy, Harry Omer, who'd been a Navy blacksmith in the First World War, I used to work with him. And he used to say, "Pick it up, lad, this was the sledge. The Lord will send it down." And away you'd go. And there you struck for about 8 hours a day, When I was on the shop floor, I used to sing. We all sang, you'd be hammering away and singing. And I always used to sing, and there was Harry Omer, he got a marvellous baritone voice, and he used to sing while he was blacksmithing. And there was a guy in the machine shop who I can't remember his name. He'd come down into the shop and speak to Harry, and he could sing as well, and they'd both sing together. And the shop would just go silent. You can imagine a blacksmith shop need to go quiet. And even the foreman, Joe Hinton, used to come and look round the corner and they'd be quiet. And then eventually he had to get back to work. But it was quite an atmosphere, very friendly atmosphere. And you get hot spots. And occasionally the glass had burst through the Zac blocks which fall in the furnace and run out in the basement. It was our job to get in there and put cooling on these hot spots. And they used to time you to go in. You'd have 3 minutes and I'd do some bolts and come out. And then someone else would go in and have a go. And gradually your time exposed to the heat would be reduced because, you'd boil if you stuck in there.
So that would be incredibly hot.
Oh, incredible, yeah. And you wore a white felt suit, thick felt suit, jacket, trousers, and like a Stetson, white felt hat. And the Stetson, it'd have a piece of string on the front with a wooden toggle on. And you'd pull that down and hold the toggle in your teeth to keep the heat off your face. But wherever you go, I always make a point of looking at the lighthouses if I can. And you always see Chance Brothers, the lens and so forth.
I started in the drawing office. Very, very strange. And only having a secondary modern education, it was rather hard. You did little details of things. But generally what I was a dog's body. You was an errand boy. Geoff, go and take these drawings and get some prints. Well, I enrolled at Chance Tech down Crockett's Lane, and it was the national course. And I'll be quite honest, you needn't repeat this, you can edit it. I struggled. You was with technical school lads and things, and I struggled. Really struggled. So after 12 months in the drawing office, it was automatically, in those 12 months, apprenticeships, our apprentices used to have to go, was summoned every 6 months to the main boardroom. Now, that was with the portraits of Chance. Still there. I'll still show it to you, Geoff. It's still there on the round turret. And there was the big oak or whatever table it was, what they have in banqueting halls. And then literally the directors, Dr. Hampton, Mr. Newman, Bill Barrett, and a couple of others sat there with your foreman and you. And they reviewed what the foreman had got to say about you. Then you had to walk a bit of a distance, because it was a 44-acre, I believe, site of Chance Brothers, where I had to walk over to the lighthouse drawing office and go up a flight of stairs to the actual drawing office. And it was like waiting at to get a prescription at the doctor's. Then you had to sign and you won't get these yet, you might as well have a wander around. I didn't mind because the building was the drawing office upstairs along that landing. That was the lighthouse drawing office. There was a shaft going from one length of this shop to the other. One side of the shop was right on the main railway line, which is still there. The place, I don't say, trembled a bit when the old steam trains went through. And darkish, and there was pulleys with belts. Not all the lathes worked off belts. And I can see a bloke coming in the morning. No, not eating as such, it was stoves, round stoves, which the men made up the soles. Sometimes as coke, or they'd use sawdust from the carpenter shop. And it'd take too long to mention it all. And they've got things built onto the side, made by them and welded on, where the little ovens where they could keep the breakfast, which I did. I followed suit, asked mother to get me the suitable things. Well, anyway, that's how I got round the whole works. I used to stand and watch them. There was glass blowing still being done, but not so much. I believe they used to blow. Well, they used to blow over a television tube. When I started, there was still some television tube. There's radar, but more like for radar. And I was fascinated. They used to have women sitting, really looking at the glassblowers' feet. They were down in how can I describe a pit? Not underground, but it was all at different levels. And I stood there more than once and thought, well, how do those women know when to open the mould so the blower can retrieve the actual finished object? I mean, he's got the blowpipe in his mouth blowing, and with the aid of compressed air and his cheeks coming out. They don't know. And I thought I shall crack it. And eventually I found he just lifted his foot. And when he lifted his foot, they could see that level with their eyes. And of course they opened it. Things like that and all. And then I went from there down. I was assigned to the machine shop. That was an experience because then you had to get in at 7:30. You had to get some overalls. I mean, there wasn't. Found for you. So you might say in September-ish, 54, I went down onto the shop floor. And they used to bring the barges in with the coal, little gas cobbles it was, and they got a great big suction pump, and they used to suck the coal out of the barges. Well, on frosty days, the coal, it was all stuck together, and if they shut down at night, it used to get clogged, and you used to have to go with, really, I suppose, really as apprenticeship, that part was labouring. With a couple of fitters and mates and us, if you were with them, and they used to try, unthaw it so they could start the suction plant up. But that went quite some time ago. Later on, my wife, I used to come when I got married. Eventually, used to come home, and she said she used to look at me and say something. She said, "Been on the furnaces?" Yeah, I thought as much. She says, "You look drained." Now you went under a furnace with 80 ton of molten glass, 15-inch blocks, slabs on, and there was 80 ton of glass above you there. Getting around, we got the lighthouse. Now, the lighthouse was another very old building. And of course, now I'm talking, you've got the old, not the concrete barrel structure. I'm talking the glass part, the part what goes round the mechanisms. Now, they was assembled on a big platform in front of a massive, what I could class as a picture window. It wouldn't be a picture window. And I can see these lanterns, I only saw a lantern at a time, on all its mechanism, which was made in a lighthouse. Turned, massive machines, big kerns, borers and things. And there was rows of machines, not shaft-driven, I might say. These was like got their own motors and thing, more modern. Probably did have them years ago. And then there's 2/3 down on the left-hand side, as you went in the main doors, massive doors. You had brought the space shuttle in through them on. There was this lighthouse, and I used to see it in stages, make a point of going to see it. And there was some smashing blokes in there, nice, more cultured than the lot I was with. But that was maintenance. This was all engineering, and they did outwork as well. They got quite a reputation. Apparently, you worked at Chance Brothers, and they know you worked in the lighthouse. You didn't even sign your name on a form. You got a job. Those prized craftsmen. But the characters they had there, Geoff. It shaped. I realise. Even now at 69, I realise. Yes, it shaped my life. It was just over 28 years I worked there, but as I say, it was. I often think when we was doing something, and Bill will work with us, got his 40 years in. And he didn't know where to have the watch or the money. And I could see it now. We was doing a job, a conveyor had got blocked up. I said, if you have that money for your 40 years, it'll got the betting shop. And he never said, what's it do here? And he started laughing. Oh, you know it will. At least have a watch, and at least if you want to say, well, that's what you get for wasting 40 years of your life. And he did that, And, when I visited his wife last time, I didn't say nothing. I could see a couple Bill's watch. I could, the gold watch. She did say to me, not long after he died, I went to see how she was. He said, he always used to say, Bill, if you hadn't been for that leather work, I'd never have it stopped me. He would have gone, he'd have fluttered it on the horses and things like that. When I saw the department, they just over a couple, I don't know how many days, they just burnt all the joists, what was holding the main joist into the ground, and silver and blue paint, it was all there, beautiful, cut away, just slowly burning that down and everything. And when they must have thought, well, we can't do too much more, leave them standing, there was a large caterpillar, or 2 caterpillars, or JCBs may have been, attached, changed to the upper part of the building, and he started rocking. The crane with its cradle where the man used to sit and or drive it, all that was left in there. The lot was left in, and that building started to shake, and eventually it went down as though it was a pack of cards, and the dust rose. And Bertman come to the door, and he says, "I'm upset about that, aren't you, Geoff?" I said, "I should bloody well think I'm upset. I might have used stronger language." I says, "I spent from when I was 20, 57, until the end of May 61 in that building, and after coming back here, setting this up, you see." Anyhow, there was that. So I then we went into the new, what was the Austin Lie building, and there remained until I literally I did see the building collapse, actually, in, well, it'd be 80, probably, it'd be 83.
Well, they were a family business, more or less. I mean, a lot of families actually worked together in there for many, many years. My short spell, if you say 15 years, it wasn't anything compared with some 35 years service and all that. And the families that changed hands, the fathers were there, the mothers were there as well in different sections, and eventually the youth came in. So most people knew one another. But I really missed the place when I left. It was the comradeship that you had with the drivers. They did get on well together. And it was a good job to get on. All over the country, all over. From north, south, east, and west. Scotland was a big run that we used to take fluorescent tubes up there to Hamilton, stay overnight, and back the next day. That was prior to motorways, that was, when we used to go up Shap. That was right over the hill, right up to the Scottish border then. In the winter was tremendous, but we got there somehow. I always used to think it was nice to come back. Whenever you went out, it was like a pigeon flying back home. So although we went back to Chance Glass, it was our home more or less, wasn't it? Because that's the reason we went away and come back. And it was this necessity to come back and then back home again. Yes, a return journey of a pigeon. And in that way, I've met quite a few Poles, even in Chance Glass, that couldn't realise that some people can speak Polish, although they're English. So a tremendous amount of different races, Jamaican and Indian, Iranian, you name it, Polish, Ukrainian. But they all got on together well. It was taken for granted that if you worked in a pleasant surroundings, I found that you were happy. So the production was happy. I doubt if they've got the same thing now. But the roll plate was a magnificent thing that I could never imagine how people could get glass to heat to that temperature and roll out as though it was pastry, which had to be cooled by distilled water.
My name is Maud Morris. I worked at Chance's when I was I came up from Tredegar, South Wales. When I was 17 years of age, I moved up with my family. I started work at Chance's right away, and I worked in the warehouse to start with. And I used to think that I should pay them for letting me go there, because we had a wonderful time, wonderful people I worked with. So I went into the traffic office and saw this Mr. Foster. And they said, I've come after, I forget his name now. And he said, well, that's a man's job. And I said, I know that. And I said, but it's only clerking. I said, if a man could do it, I can't see why a woman can't do it. And he said, well, you've got a bit of a nerve. And I said, well, I'm speaking my mind. And he said, good for you. He said, I'll take you on. He said, only for a month. He said, I'll take you on for a month and see how you get on. Well, of course, that was it. He never even called me back to tell me if I'd got the job. I was still there when I left. As I say, there was Madge Richards. She was in the medical room. She was the nurse on duty. And she married a chap that was from there, Ted Richards. He'd left and he used to come, you can tell what a firm it was. He used to come every Friday. He got a farm and he used to come every Friday and bring the eggs and sell the eggs around. Sell the eggs around the works. Can you imagine that happening today? Yeah, he used to come in with the eggs in his van and sell the eggs around the works. In the end, she married him. All had to go in and sometime during the holiday to put the wages up, because in those days it wasn't paid into the bank. It was all put up in little packets in a big tray. And on a Friday, we'd all have these little boxes under our arms. We'd have to go and pay the wages out. I can remember the old chap, he was in charge at the time, Mr. Wilkes, his name was. He was a character. If somebody hadn't got the right wages, if they were sixpence short maybe, because of course it was the old currency, sixpence short, they'd go up, tap the window, up would come the flap, and he'd say, what you want? Frighten you to death before you asked anything. So that was Mr. Wilkes. Dear old chap, really, but as I say, he frightened you to death when he opened that flap. There was an old chap, he was old at the time. I never had any teeth. And he was always trying to get out to back his horses. I'm trying to think of his name. He was a character, he was. What work he used to do was nil. I can assure you there's quite a few working at Chance's that went to Chance's rather than worked at Chance's, shall I say. Oh, happy days. Very happy. I wouldn't have worked anywhere else. From the time I went till the time I left, I never ever wanted to go anywhere else. Never. Absolutely wonderful. Lovely place to work.
Yes, I enjoyed it tremendously. At times it was hard and heavy when I was an apprentice, and later on as I became a manager, it could be mentally very stressing, and it could be a long time. I mean to say, I have worked 36 hours without a break, and this happens sometimes. But you're in a company that's working 365 days a year. But I didn't really think about it. And then later on, when I got a bit older, late 20s, I thought, this is a job for life. There were so many fathers and sons and granddads and all sorts there. Families, 3 generations would be working at the same time. And people, when the son came of age, they inquired if there was a job for the son, and they got them in, so to speak. They got some big lads amongst the glassmakers, believe you me. And there were families. The Bodleys and others who were all big lads, every one of them. And the Vineys were another big family. And there were several of these families who all worked there. And to see them, they were Tarzans, there's no doubt about it. And they worked all day with these hot blocks just absolutely melting. And the rolling machines we developed. And we built those for all over the world. Australia, India, you name it, Canada. We built them everywhere. Of course, Pilkingtons have got works all over the world then. People with these sort of abilities are not easily come by, and it would be expensive to train one. So it's we had a myriad of people like this who they weren't given much credit, but I always thought it how well they worked and how accurate they worked, and yet their skills were taken for granted. He used to polish his shoes before he walked up the corridors of the general offices, and my managing director was up there, Ken Hadley. Got to say something. He was a wonderful managing director. He had absolute trust in me for some strange reason. I hope I never let him down. But he was a man I respected. He's given me a few bollockings in his time, but I still respected him. He was a man who could deal with production and knew what he was on. I took a degree in management, actually, and learnt the terms for many of these things. But they were a paternal management, very much a paternal management. As I was taught at college, paternal management wasn't good, but that was rubbish. Paternal management is excellent, and I think it's the finest form. They looked after you, they expected something from you, and the feeling was you were part of a family. Very early on, I saw how well the pensioners were looked after, and I was only probably 21 or something then. To be looking at pensioners when you're 21 is a bit young, but I saw they got the dog licenses paid and the television licenses paid, and they got a bag of coal or a load of coal at Christmas, and this really impressed me on how well they were looking after the pensioners. Because underneath the 7-story in the bottom, in the basement there, we got the beer cellar, and it had licensing hours, the same as a pub, and the men used to come with their their enamel buckets to fetch a bucket of beer. And when they were gathering glass, blowing glass, or doing other odd jobs around the furnace, they just used to get the bucket of beer and dig in with their glass every time they felt the need, which was often. And they'd take the worn blocks off the furnace and use big heavy tools on wheels and all sorts to put the blocks back and reblock the top surface. Now those men were in heat for a long day. And I mean heat. Really, really burning heat. Burn your eyebrows looking at it. And it was absolutely singeing heat. And they'd be drinking the beer quite well, believe you me. It was. And remember, we're melting sand in a glass furnace. The steel industry have very hot furnaces, pour into sand, but we melt it, so we're hotter than the steel furnaces. And when you say white heat, it really is white heat. The air that they use on the burners in a furnace comes in at white heat before it starts the burn, because it's preheated in the regenerators. And consequently, the whole thing surrounding it is very, very hot. Jock Anderson, who's sadly now dead, him and Dave would get into the hottest, tightest spots you could dream of. We used to make proflutes, which was a German product. It was a glass channel which we used to roll, about 10 inches across and 3.5 inches high on the flanges. And the process was terrible, and there was so much heat involved on the changeover and people having to get in there and get very hot. And I've seen those two work till they were singeing and they carried on working. People like that were the salt of the earth as far as I was concerned. And strangely enough, it helps production tremendously because everyone helps somebody else out. And if you work together, all striving to a common end, it makes a terrific difference to if people take the attitude, oh, that's his job, I don't want to be bothered. And I think from a production point of view, it assisted this attitude of being part of a family and helping one another and the
The lighthouse works was massive. It was beautiful work to see what they did in brass, all the gearing and all that for lighthouses. And the head itself, the lens, the optic, used to float on a bath of mercury so that it turned easily. And the whole thing, which was quite massive, the head, was turned by about a 100 or 200 weight dropping down the lighthouse tower. And it used to turn and revolve the head quite gently. But I suppose from my point of view, the thing that I remember most about Chance Brothers was designing and building the automatic handling plant for the roll plate, which took about 10 years in all. A lot of assistance, obviously, from everybody. I don't take the credit for that, but I was, what shall we say, the key man in most of it. The funny thing is, I built these machines for all over the world, and the world used to come to me. I never got outside the front door. When you look back, I know the memory does tend to forget the bad times. There's no doubt about that, but it was good. It was a good life, and you felt you were achieving something. And I think, to me, that is very important. The Flemish and Reedy glasses were very high-quality glasses. They had a clear sparkle to them. And if you show me these glasses made by Pilkington compared to glasses made by Chance Brothers, you can see the difference. And you can pick a Pilkington Flemish out from a Chance Brothers Flemish. Because people were so proud of what they were producing. Believe you me, the people on the production end on the roll plate machine were very, very particular about production, very particular. And the men at the warehouse end would soon chuck it out if it wasn't up to scratch. There was a tremendous pride in the product. And Ken Hadley, the managing director, called us into the boardroom one day for a meeting. And he told us, that it looks like it's all up, and that I think he said in February or March or something, it looks like the board had decided that was the end. And our hearts went into our shoes. I think all of us, we were all very upset, and we got to go back with the news to the shop floor. But people they were. And you realise that some of them had got skills that would be lost. But I say, from my point of view, I felt, well, it was the end of an era, but I felt there was nothing beyond it. I was so empty. And although I was an engineer, my managing director spoke to me about things. This is right. But say we were worried about people. And I think I was worried about people. And as I say, my managing director says, don't worry, Ray, you'll be all right, you're a good engineer. But I didn't feel that secure, but as it was, I finished at Chance's on a Friday and started at another works on Monday. But after that, all the production people went. The majority of my department went, but I kept a handful back to help me getting rid of stuff, and selling it, which we did. And then they all left. Then for 6 months, Pilkington's kept me there and kept on bullying me to go up to St. Helens, which I didn't want to go to Liverpool. That's all it was. And I was there, and it was absolutely soul-destroying, to be honest. I was there. I was the only one there for 6 months. Everybody else had gone. And to be honest, I wept at times. I walked around the works. I was selling things. I was trying to get rid of things. For a time after production closed, which didn't close at the time that was decided by the board, the unions persuaded them for tax reasons to go on until April. But after that, all the production people went. The majority of my department went, but I kept a handful back to help me getting rid of stuff, and selling it, which we did. Yes, you see, then you saw things which you'd built, you'd strived with, you'd perfected, you'd altered and altered and altered. And then somebody comes along and hits it with a sledgehammer and it goes in the skip. It's awful, really. It really is. I say, to walk round the place, I thought of the many happy times I'd had there, the struggles we'd had, but there was so many times you succeeded. You didn't fail all that often, to be fair. You succeeded in so many things, and with the help of many other people, you made a success of something. You were proud of that then, but at this stage, when it was closing down, you invited the scrap man in to go and take that lot away for a fiver and a goldfish. You know, it was soul destroying. And I say, I did weep. I've worked in other companies, and when I changed my job, I realised just how naive I was. I didn't realise that things existed outside the way they were.